Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan with a hot take. And yes, it's another comic book one. I know. But I'm still in the comic game. I still do the Web Comic Factory at thewebcomicfactory.com and Superfrat at superfrat.com. But I had to step in on this one because this is just a new insanely woke thing that came out in comics. Scott Snyder, who's a famous comic book guy, just posted this this tweet with this pledge that he's encouraging people in the comic book industry to take, which will make you ask the first question, which is, why would we need this pledge? Like, what is so wrong with the comic book industry that a pledge like this is needed? Well, there are a bunch of wackos in the comic book industry. That much is true. But I think they exist in every industry. Although, in the world of comics, it gets particularly vicious because the stakes are so low. That's a Henry Kissinger quote that I'm modifying. But let's take a look at this because I got to weigh in. All right, so Scott Snyder starts with the tweet. I pledge to say no to abuse, harassment, grooming, and manipulation of women and all people of marginalized genders and sexes. Are you with us? Take the comics pledge with me. You know what, Scott? I pledge not to murder people. I pledge not to steal their cars or punch them in the face. I pledge not to kick someone in the balls when I meet them. I pledge not to vomit on random passersby. I pledge not to take a bat and smash in the windows of a random person's car for no reason. I pledge not to push people into traffic. I mean, what kind of pledge is this? Why do you need to pledge to do this? As if, like, people are just waiting to do this. Well, normally I would. Normally I'd be abusing people like crazy, but I took this pledge, so I can't do it anymore. So let's read this pledge. Ugh, the wokeness. Ugh, the wokeness. Okay, so it says men in comics say no. Okay. There are a lot of ideals we claim to honor in comics. Hope, justice, unity, innovation, creativity, and freedom. Creativity, freedom. It's not a proper sentence. And why does it say men in comics say no? Why isn't everyone included in this? Why is it only men? Why men? Why, Scott? Why? Why are we suddenly the problem? I know why. It's because you've probably gone ultra super woke, super saiyan wokeness. Men are the problem, and I'm the first man to stand up and say it. I'm so brave, stunning and brave. So here we go. None of them mean anything unless men in comics change our behavior. Well, speak for yourself, a-hole. I'm not abusing people. Unless men in comics change our behavior and hold each other accountable for the safety of women and all people of marginalized genders and sexes. Wow. I didn't realize that women and all people of marginalized genders are sexist and sexes were so dependent upon us to save them. Talk about white knighting. My God, the hubris in this. Yeah. I'm not accountable to save randos, Scott. Okay? I'm not accountable for that. I'm not. It's not my problem. It's a problem if a friend of mine is being attacked regardless of who they are, regardless of whether they're a woman or marginalized or, I don't know, cis straight males. I know, even those people, Scott. Even someone like yourself, if I knew you and I was a friend. Otherwise, I don't know you. I'm supposed to jump in and start saving people. This is exactly what causes problems. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. You want suddenly everybody up in everybody's business? What are you, out of your mind? Continuing, here's the pledge. I pledge, first, to never abuse, harass, groom, or manipulate women and all people of marginalized genders and sexes. Okay, let's break this down. To never abuse. Okay, again, most people don't abuse people. They just don't. So to take a pledge not to abuse when they're not one of these people, you know who will take this pledge? People who abuse people. Oh, they'll take it in a second because they want to cover up their abuse. Harass? Sure. Again, same kind of thing. But you're kind of putting abuse and harassment in the same category, and I think they're kind of in different categories. When you say abuse, I'm assuming you mean physical abuse, which is really, really bad. Now, harassment's not good either, but it's kind of in a different category. So you're kind of comparing words and violence, or you're just being obtuse about it. I can't tell. And then you put groom. Okay, whoa. Now you're into like, whew. I don't know if you've been following the grooming scandals over in the UK, but they can't even get a handle on that. And you're asking comic book guys to suddenly hunt down groomers? Could you please define what you mean by grooming? If you mean that what's happening in the UK, yikes, call the cops. I think you might be indicating that younger women talking to older comic guys? Yeah, I mean, obviously, if there is a minor involved, that's a pretty big red flag, Scott. I think we're all on board not to mess around in that area. But if they're grown adults, they're allowed to do whatever the heck they want. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on here and why you think you need to put this out here. Manipulate women. Well, that's really crystal clear. What the hell does that mean? And what if you're talking to some woman in a bar and she decides you manipulated her? She felt you were manipulating her. Oh yeah, this pledge is going to do great. And all people of marginalized genders and sexes. I feel like, again, there's two different categories here. Like, there's maybe some kind of abuse or harassment or grooming or manipulation of women, and then there's a different sort of category for people of marginalized genders or sexes. Maybe. I don't know if you can compare those two things. It's kind of a little different. Because there are some misunderstandings that get interpreted as harassment and abuse. So, there are very sensitive people in the comic book industry. And if you criticize them, well, a lot of them will just immediately say, stop harassing me. Are we to hold them accountable as what? Comic book guys? I mean, there's stuff that's legal and stuff that's illegal. Most people know where that line is. And if you don't, well, you probably should learn it. I don't think this pledge is really clarifying that. Next category, to hold myself accountable for my own actions. Well, yeah, everybody should be doing that. Be open to the comments and concerns of my peers, and educate myself. Not sure what you're saying, but I think I know what you're implying. What you're saying is, get on board with the SJW program or go F yourself, right? I mean, is that what you're saying? Or are you going to take the comments and concerns of Comicsgate? I don't think you're including them in this. Maybe you are. Maybe you're that open to comments and concerns, but I kind of doubt it. But let's continue. To actively intervene when we see or know of abuse, harassment, grooming, or manipulation. Well, I think you should actively intervene when you see something illegal, when you see somebody in trouble, but you're kind of opening the door here for people to, yes, Dougie, I'm doing a rant. You're kind of opening the door here for people to get involved in everybody else's business, and you kind of got to be real careful about that. Let me tell you a little story. So on the comic book circuit, there was, I don't want to say any names here, so I'm going to try to be as vague as possible. Here, Doggy, come here. I'm telling a story. So, on the comic book circuit, we all have our circle of friends. So I had this circle I hung out with at a certain comic book convention, and this creator entered the circle, and he had a wife who he brought along one year, and she was very charming and gorgeous, and I even said to myself at the time, just thinking in my own head, wow, this guy's really lucky. He's making comics. He seems to be doing well for himself. And his wife is really beautiful and charming. And just, I sat next to her at one of the dinners, and I chatted with her, and I just thought, wow, this guy's really lucky to have a wife like this. I was a little jealous, I have to say. And then next year rolled around, same convention. His wife didn't come, but he hooked up with this younger comic book creator. And I thought, holy F, what an idiot. His wife was beautiful and charming, and here he is cheating on her pretty openly with this other creator. And she was a nice enough person, but I think she was a little screwed up in the head to be doing that. I think she was. Now, was it abuse, harassment, grooming, manipulation? I don't know. They were both adults, man. Am I supposed to step in and say, hey, you're banging this guy? He's cheating on his wife. What the hell are you doing? Am I supposed to step in and say, oh, are you really consenting to this? No, it's none of my business. I was disgusted by it. I thought this guy was an idiot for doing it. He ended up ruining his marriage, ruining his career. He didn't do any great things for the girl he was banging on the side. And, it was just dumb. It was just dumb. The whole thing was dumb. And I would have been glad not to be a part of it. I felt so bad for this man's wife. I felt so bad for her. What you're doing here with this pledge is you're opening the door for people to meddle in other people's relationships. That's not what you should do. Okay? People kill each other over relationships. You can't be messing around with that. You just can't. People have their own deal. There are some people, they're in terrible, terrible, terrible relationships. Even some of the worst, most nightmarish things happen in them. And guess what? They forgive each other and they stay together. It's sad, but it's true. You don't want to get in the middle of that. Trust me. So, pump the brakes. Next up, to ally for women and all people of marginalized genders and sexes experiencing abuse, harassment, grooming, or manipulation. I don't know what to ally. You're kind of turning a word into a verb that shouldn't be a verb, but, again, this all feels like you're in people's business, and you shouldn't be. Okay? It's different if someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm being harassed or abused. Can you help me? Obviously, you don't want to encourage that, but, to actively, what am I supposed to be? I'm supposed to be the police? Am I the police, Scott? Am I supposed to police every convention I go to? Oh, are you consenting? Are you consenting? I mean, pump the damn brakes, man. Have you been to a comic book convention? Have you seen what goes on at these things? What goes on at these things is what goes on at everything. Young people trying to get laid, nonstop, trying to hook up, trying to find a relationship. Girls trying to find a relationship. Guys trying to find sex. That's what happens. That's life. And I'm not saying bad things don't happen. And those bad things should be, you should step up if you see something really egregious. But you should actually see it. Okay? You have to be sure. You can't go running around accusing people of things. You could ruin somebody's career. You have to understand that there are people who, they're a little out there. And sometimes they say they're harassed or, whatever. And their definition of it is extremely broad. And they may not be lying, but they may be hysterical. They may be in a moral panic. There are people who are actually abused. Yes. But you're not the police. Your job is not to police it. Your job is, if you see something, yeah, you call the cops. If you see somebody hitting somebody, you call the cops. Intervene, that's a big play, man. It's a big play to intervene in a fight between two people. A big play. I mean, you don't just stand there, but understand that you could be killed. You could be killed. Somebody can punch you and kill you. It's true. Happens all the time. People get hit, they get knocked out, their head hits the floor, a cement floor, boom, they're dead. It's lights out. And it could just be, well, it could be a normal altercation. That's why you call an authority. That's why you call the cops and say, hey, I think those two people are fighting over there. Then the cops go over, usually everybody calms down, and hopefully the cops get to the bottom of it. Do you have a perfect system? No. But that's what the cops are for. Again, next one. To actively call out our friends and peers even when no one else is watching. I don't know what this means. To call out what? I guess abuse, harass, groom. Obviously. But again, adults are allowed to do whatever they want. Yeah, you could say to your friend, she's a little young for you, dude. I mean, but again, it's not your place. It's not your place to tell everybody what they should or should not do. Badinsky. I mean, if they're doing something illegal, you go, whoa, dude, that's illegal. Do not do that. But if it's not illegal and it's adults, consenting adults, no. And finally, to commit to this pledge for the long haul and keep the conversation alive in the industry. This isn't a conversation. These are marching orders. You might have consulted people before you did this. And then a little tag. We understand marginalized genders, sexes to include, but not limited to, non-binary and binary, trans people, two-spirit, agender, gender-fluid people, as well as intersex people of any gender. Well, thank you, intersectional Scott Snyder. A lot of this, it's intersectional feminism. If you want to buy into all that, knock yourself out. Some of this, not everybody's even going to agree with your terminology here. Okay? You're asking people to sign on to intersectional feminism, and not everybody wants to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sign this pledge. I'm not signing this pledge. And I'm certainly not signing a pledge that blames men over everybody else. I've seen plenty of women cause problems. Plenty. Yeah, men cause problems. Women cause problems too. Everybody causes a problem. Everybody. There's people on the internet right now causing problems, and some of them are marginalized genders, sexes to include, but not limited to, non-binary, binary, trans people, two-spirit, agender, gender-fluid people, as well as intersex people of any gender. Because they're human beings, and human beings cause problems, Scott, and you don't have to white knight for them, okay? You're taking this too far. It used to be that people on the left would say, hey, hippie people, let's all be brothers and sisters and be nice to one another. When I was a kid, that's what they taught in school, because I usually got taught by hippies. And that was fine. It was a good message. What's wrong with that? Everybody get along. Everybody treat each other like your brother or your sister. Nothing wrong with that. Treat people like family. Nothing wrong with that sentiment at all. You're getting bogged down in all these specifics because you're so woke and you're so trying to push yourself out there and into the wokeness, I guess. I'm just guessing at what you're doing, Scott. But this pledge, how about just a pledge to treat everybody nice? I mean, it's a little broad, but it works. It works. That's what we did back in the old days. We just taught people, hey, treat everybody like your brother and sister. Treat them nice. Treat people like you would like to be treated. Now, that doesn't always work. Some people, they like to be treated in weird ways. So human beings are weird, and they get a whole bunch of stuff screwed up. You trying to social engineer things, especially using the comic book industry, man, it's just a weak play. It's just a weak play overall, and I had to weigh in and just say, please, stop putting this stuff out there. I know you're trying to help, but it just comes off as a bunch of wacky virtue signaling. And quite frankly, I don't think you really thought this out. I don't think you thought out the words. The words aren't specific, and really you don't need anything that's you sort of splash a bunch of words onto a page, and it's just kind of embarrassing. If you're a writer, you really needed to do something more specific, I think, or to do something more very broad, like, hey everybody, let's just treat each other nice. I mean, is that a bad pledge? Pledge to treat everybody nice. Pledge to treat everybody as your equal. I mean, I think somebody wrote a document once that said all men are created equal, right? And yeah, it only said men, but these days we apply it to everybody. All people are created equal. How about that? Seems like it would work. This, not so much.